Well, hello, my friends. I hope you all are doing well today. It's very cloudy here in Chicago. We're having a run of cold and cloudy weather here this summer, which is fine by me. I'm not a huge fan of the sun, but I think it gets everybody else down. So hopefully the sun will come out soon. I wanted to just talk to you briefly today about something, just like a disturbing trend that I've been seeing on YouTube, and that's like Catholic bashing. And that's fine if to bash someone else's faith. Um, but if you know what the faith is, and the thing I find disturbing is that I see a lot of very well-respected scholars and preachers that I love, that I follow and I enjoy. As a Catholic, I enjoy a lot of evangelical preachers and other denominations. And they're very smart people, very learned people, educated people. And then wham, from out of nowhere, um, they've been bashing the Catholic faith, but it's not actually stuff that we believe as Catholics, which is the disturbing part. Um, so I just want to talk about one of those things today because I was just cruising the internet yesterday, and I saw this Reddit thread referencing Jesus and Mary being portrayed with crowns on their heads. So it's like the king and queen of heaven, right? And the person on Reddit said, "What's the biblical source of these statues that I see, or depictions that I see of Jesus crowned as King of Heaven and Mary next to him crowned as Queen of Heaven?" And all of these clearly evangelicals just went on rampage in response, saying there is no biblical basis, and Catholics aren't Christian anyway, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they went on to talk about the ancient cults of the Queen of Heaven that were denounced in the Old Testament and all of this. And Catholics just made this pagan cult of the Queen of Heaven into a Christian thing, and it's all fake and diabolical. Okay, well, none of this is actually true. Let's just look, first of all, really quickly at this idea that honoring Mary as Queen of Heaven is some ancient pagan thing, and that Catholics brought into our faith to ease the transition for pagans that were forced to become Christian, right? Okay, this is an old thing. So, first of all, my opinion is that the devil inspired these ancient cults, not only the cult of the Queen of Heaven, but also cults around gods who became human, lived among humans on earth, died, and then rose from the dead. Because there's about 1,000 of them in the ancient world. So if you want to disparage, the honoring of Mary as Queen of Heaven as just a offshoot of some, or Christian incarnation of a pagan cult, then we have to get rid of Jesus too, because then that he's a resurrected God, a God that came to heaven, died, and was resurrected. So if that's the basis for disparaging Mary as Queen of Heaven because it's based on a pagan, supposedly based on a pagan ancient cult, then we have to get rid of Jesus too. Okay, so that's that. The idea that there is second of all, let's just get this out of the way too. We do not worship Mary. Catholics do not worship Mary, and we don't worship saints, and we don't pray to saints as if they can give us something. When we pray, it's like in legalese, when you say your prayer to the court is what you're asking for. So when we pray to a saint or we pray to Mary, we're asking for something. And what we're asking the saints and what we're asking Mary is for them to intercede for us, as our brothers and sisters, as our friends. And there's precedent for this. This is something we've talked about before, that God doesn't need us to, for example, go to St. Therese and say, St. Therese, I'm really struggling having patience with, my husband. I can just go to Jesus and say, like, I'm really struggling having patience with my husband. Can you please help me have more patience with him? I go to St. Therese because she struggled with patience. And it was something that she overcame because of her love for Jesus. She brought her difficulty, her sin to Jesus, her struggle. And because of her love for Jesus, she concentrated on this and worked on this. And with her prayer, through her prayer and her devotion to overcome this, she overcame it and she made it holy. She made her difficulty holy. And she became one of the most patient people ever. And so that's why I would go to St. Therese and say, like, man, Therese, I'm really struggling with this. Can you pray with me? Pray with me to help me get better at this. Take my prayers to Jesus to help me with this, because you did that and you understand what I went through. So that's why we do that. And especially when we go to Mary and we pray to Mary, this has an incredible foundation in not only the New Testament, but in the Old Testament. And it's all based, especially Mary as the Queen of Heaven. It's all based in, first of all, in the Old Testament and in the court system of the ancient Israelites, in which system the mother of the king was the queen, not the wife of the king. It was the mother. So she sat by his side. And so in that system, if Jesus is King of Heaven, King of all, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, then his mother is the one that sits next to him and is crowned next to him. So that's where that starts in the Bible, for the biblical foundation of Mary as the Queen of Heaven. But we also see, we also see it not just in the principle, but we see it in the Old Testament. Most clearly, I think, in the story of King Solomon and Bathsheba in 1 Kings chapter 2, when Adonijah goes to Bathsheba and asks to relay to King Solomon his request. So he didn't go to the king, he went to the queen to go and ask for him. And that's where we see very clearly in practice that custom and that tradition in the ancient the court system of ancient Israel, where it was the mother of the queen who was not only, the mother of the king that was not only the queen, but she was an intercessor and a consultant to the king. And so when you see Catholics going to Mary to ask her, can you ask Jesus to do this for me? That's totally has its precedent, not only in the Old Testament, but also in the New Testament. We see this play out numerous times when Mary becomes pregnant and she goes to visit her cousin Elizabeth. And Elizabeth greets her and says, "Who am I that the mother of my Lord should come to me?" She's saying, who am I that the Queen Mother should come to me? She's acknowledging the king, that Jesus and that is in her womb is going to be the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and that Mary is the Queen Mother. We also see this in the wedding at Cana, of course, when Mary goes to Jesus and is like, they're out of wine here. And he's like, not my problem. And she just ignores him and basically tells the servants, do whatever he tells you, and gets it all set up. Because, he does what she says, essentially, she doesn't have control over him. She doesn't command him, but he's going to do what she asks him. And that's just very, very clear in that story. And so, it's the first miracle that Jesus works. He works it for her. And so that's why we feel confident going to Mary. Even when we go to Jesus, we're like, Jesus, help me, help me. And it's like crickets. Sometimes then we go to Mary and go like, Mary, can you know, talk to him? That's basically what we're doing. Plus there's precedent for that. So I hope, this is just like a little, oh, and the other thing too is that, oh my gosh, I've seen horrible, horrible videos just ripping apart the idea of Mary, as Queen of Heaven with this crown of stars on her head, because apparently in the ancient world, the Queen of Heaven cult depicted this goddess that way, this woman with a crown of stars on her head. But that's from the book of Revelation. It's not from an ancient cult. I know a lot of Protestants do not look at the book of Revelation as the woman in the book of Revelation as that. They look at the woman as the church with the crown of 12 stars on her head, the 12 tribes of Israel, etc. But the Catholic Church does not look at the woman in the book of Revelation that way. We look at that woman as Mary, the Queen of Heaven, and all of the imagery that goes along with that, the dragon and the child, etc. So I hope that this has made things a little bit clearer. Again, if you have problems with the dogma of the Catholic Church, the teachings of the church, I want you to have problems with what the teachings really are, not with the falsehoods that are being bandied about out there. And we can talk about all of this stuff. I'm so happy to debate this, discuss it, talk about the biblical background of all of this. But I just don't want anybody to have the wrong impression of what the church really is, because that causes so much unnecessary division and hostility when you're fighting about stuff that's not even true. So, and I hope you would do the same for me if I had mistaken ideas about the evangelical beliefs, other Protestant denominations, etc. Because it does us no good to argue about things that we don't, one another doesn't even believe. So I hope this has just been a little bit helpful. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next time, remember to pray for ghosts, which I know a lot of you don't feel we need to, but we can talk about that another time too. Until then, I'm going to pray for ghosts. I'm Marissa Bielski.